Welcome to another episode in a series where I go through all the trucks officially announced for the upcoming game Snowrunner, analyse their real-world counterparts, and talk about how I think this will affect both their role and performance in-game. In this episode, we'll be looking at something a bit different, a proper truck, the International Loadstar 1700. This truck is a bit different from the other trucks we've covered, in that whilst it's still two-axle, and much smaller than the other trucks we'll get to later, and even though it's still classed as Scout officially, just a quick glance will show that in its stock form it lacks a bed, just like other conventional trucks. The Lodestar name was used for a whole range of trucks built over a 16-year period from 1962 to 1978. Lodestars range from 4x2 buses with a longer wheelbase, called the Schoolmaster, to 6x4 highway semi-tractors. There are even forward control variants built for a select few of the model numbers. The International feature in the game is an early version 1700. We can tell by the iconic grey grille and butterfly hood. Another thing of interest to note is that the Lodestar featured in game is actually a double cab version rather than a single cab. Such a long lifetime, it's no surprise that the Lodestar series had such a varied range of engines. We'll go through what engines were available for all of them, even though the Lodestar 1700 was more limited in real life. Right from the off, 3 engines were available to the Lodestar series. The first was a 193 horsepower, 5 litre petrol V8. The second was a 197 horsepower, 5.7 litre petrol V8, and the third was a 236 horsepower, 6.4 litre petrol V8. On launch, the 5 litre was standard for the 1700, but the 5.7 litre was available as an upgrade. However, in 1974, a 210 horsepower, 6.6 litre V8 was introduced as a standard for the 1700. The short length of the engine bay meant that the Lodestar series was more suited to V8 engines rather than inline 6s, but despite this, 3 inline 6 engines were also offered. The smallest was on a 154 horsepower, 4.3 litre petrol inline 6. The next one up was a 136 horsepower, 4.6 litre petrol inline 6, and the largest was a 202 horsepower, 5 litre petrol inline 6. Why the medium-sized engine was the weakest, I haven't the foggiest, but there you go. A selection of diesel engines was also available for the Lodestar series, primarily the 1750 and the 1850. These seem to include the International 165 horsepower 7.6 litre diesel V8, the International 200 horsepower 9 litre diesel V8, the Detroit Diesel 195 horsepower 5.2 litre diesel V6, and lastly, a couple of Perkins inline 6 diesels, although I couldn't find any information on these. Boy, looking at diesel engines in trucks like this can sure be a bit of a freak show of anything goes. No easy way to tell whether a Lodestar is 4x4 or 2x4 from the outside or the model number alone. Models were sold as the International Loadstar 1700 4x4 for example. 4x4 Lodestars had 2 levers in the cabin that control both the low-high range gearbox and the engagement of the front axle. This means that the all-wheel drive being always on in-game is incorrect to real life. In a specification sheet I found online, I couldn't find anything about front or rear differential locks, let alone automatic differential locks. Unless I missed something, it seems possible that this is just another inaccuracy. The last piece of technical information on the truck card is also wrong. The Lodestar 1700 was fitted with a 100 litre fuel tank in real life, not 130 litres as it will be in game. With all the fuel tanks we've looked at so far being incorrect, it's becoming clear that the fuel tanks in the game have been sized for game balance reasons, not accuracy, and this should be kept in mind when thinking about the potential role of all trucks. The Lodestar 1700 came out in 4 wheelbase lengths, but none of these lengths are 5.8 metres. The closest length to the stated dimensions is 6 metres. Presumably they looked at the non-4x4 Lodestar 1700, which did have a version around 5.8 metres, and thought that the 4x4 version had the same lengths. This isn't a huge difference, but it still seems odd to me. Despite this mistake, it seems that the given width is correct. 5.8 metres is small for a semi-truck, and obviously with this being the double cab version, this takes up a lot of space on the chassis. It means that there won't be much room at the back of the truck for add-ons. I estimate only about 2 metres. I'm not even sure this would be enough space for a 5th wheel coupling point. Not that you'd want to try and tow a semi-trailer of this. This truck is heavy for a Scout and doesn't seem to have the most powerful engines. It will struggle immensely trying to tow anything with it. Trying to tow a semi-trailer on the road with this truck will be akin to using the B30 from Mudrunner as a semi-hauler. However, if you just run it with add-ons and no trailer, I think this will be a good truck. The dual back tyres will give it the grip it needs to plough through dirt, and the back area will give it a bigger hauling capacity for medium cargo or repair/refuelling needs. Overall, I think this will be a good little truck. When used off-road with no trailers, it will be akin to the B66 from Mudrunner, a sound and capable vehicle. This was a fun episode to do, and a complete contrast to the last. Now that we have all the officially announced Scouts done, we can move on to other, subjectively more interesting trucks. One of the best sources of information I found for this video was a scanned-in copy of the Lodestar range specification brochure. It proved tremendously helpful, and I've linked it in the description below. Thank you again for watching. Take it easy, everyone.